Welcome to Level Up. I'm Sherelle.
And I'm Danny, and this is the podcast where we talk about health, fitness, and mindset. The power of self-talk, exploring the impact of positive and negative inner dialogue. Today's topic.
I'm excited to get into this one because self-talk is a massive thing for a lot of people, both positive and negative. So we really want to be able to dive into self-talk, and both Danny and I obviously work with clients, and we've gone through our own journeys when it comes to self-talk as well. And it's just a conversation that doesn't happen that often.
Yes, only within, we all have that inner dialogue, whether it be positive or negative. And I feel like even though you and I, for example, we've gone through so many things in life, they say another level, another devil. And often that little devil voice in your head is trying to stop you. Even with, upgrading the podcast, you still get those nerves, you still get that voice. So it's just really about, riding the positive self-talk when it appears, be your biggest cheerleader, but then also what to do when that negative self-talk arises, because it does for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really wanted to highlight at the start of this episode that both Danny and I, we still have our own shit, right? Like, we still have our own negative self-talk that pops in from time to time. But the difference is what you do with it. Like, I know that negative self-talk, one, is like not even in a lot of people's awareness. They're not even consciously aware that they're speaking to themselves in that way. And two, it just stops people from taking so much action. And I think that's such a shame because, you're probably capable of so much more than you think if you just let that little voice just, go away, sit on the couch. So I wanted to highlight that, no, we haven't figured it all out. And we're still going to have our, negative self-talk parts pop up from time to time to tell us, don't lean into that, don't do that, or you're not good enough, you're not smart enough. We've all got those pieces. But I think it's so important to name it and tame it, talk about it. And then, hopefully we can share some strategies that we sort of do from a mental perspective.
Totally. And by no means are we psychologists or psychiatrists, so we're talking sort of surface level negative self-talk. We are very much aware that self-talk can be quite detrimental to people's mental health. So obviously we're not talking to people that need help from a registered professional. We're sort of talking to people who we know would resonate with our advice. So if it's, a lot deeper, then we're not going to go deep in today's episode because we're not qualified for it, but surface level negative self-talk, we're here to talk about and how to overcome that.
Yeah. And then also just sharing our personal experiences too. Like, I think, that's probably more relatable. And, I've definitely got some mental tactics that I sort of like to use to try and remind myself, to lean in rather than leaning away. But I think we should start by talking about what is self-talk. So I'm not sure whether something comes to mind for you, Danny, of what self-talk is and what self-talk isn't.
I mean, I don't have an exact definition, but I feel like that inner dialogue that is trying to guide you through life. And I think when you're truly present, there's no inner dialogue, but that is quite rare to actually be not having a voice in your head.
True.
So for me, it often comes on, so positive or negative, it often comes on when there's about to be an event or there's an emotional connection, whether something amazing is about to happen, I get that awesome positive self-talk of excitement. But then if something that I'm nervous for happens or, I don't feel too good, then that negative self-talk arises too. So for me, it's very much emotional. I find that if I'm present, there's no dialogue. I don't know if you get that as well.
Yeah, so when you're present, in the experience, you don't notice the voice?
Totally, because I'm so in flow, or I'm just focusing on things in the room. It's very much connected to thoughts of past or future, I feel.
That is so true. I mean, when we think about where we spend most of our energy, it is in the past or the future. It's really ever in the current present moment. We're worried about what's happened or what's going to happen. So you're dead right in saying that. When I think about self-talk, for me personally, and what I notice in other people, I feel like there's a big difference between subconscious self-talk and conscious self-talk. And I think what I really want to dive into today is more of the the self-talk that we don't know we're doing, because I feel like that has the most impact, the most detrimental impact, but then also the most positive impact when it's there all of the time. Whereas, like, yes, to work on any skill, we need to make it a conscious behavior. That's how we have to start with anything in life. But the goal is to always, I guess, make it less friction. We want it to be easier to, be our own cheerleader, or to notice negative thoughts, or to do those sort of things. Whereas if we're constantly trying to make it happen, like, that's more of a conscious act. But for me, I think self-talk, it's the inner dialogue that you don't even know is there. It's your beliefs, it's your values, it's the things that drive you, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah, and your environment. You'd be, you all notice that, or you can notice that if you're surrounded by certain people, or I don't know, just a social environment, that can really change your inner dialogue, even on a subconscious level, based on perhaps not wanting to stand out of the crowd. So your inner dialogue changes, or if you're around people that are quite negative, you start to pick that up, or maybe you might feel guilty for your positive dialogue because everyone around you isn't. So I feel like environment plays a big role, but then also past experiences, things we've gone through that maybe pumped up our confidence, or things we've gone through that, we all have that high school experience where you got made fun of or something, and then your inner dialogue might follow that as well. So I feel like we can totally be shaped by the past a lot.
Yeah, I agree. Past experiences are probably going to be one of the biggest influences for our self-talk, because think of like when you were a child, right? Like when you were in prep or kindergarten, like you just didn't care. You were so confident. You know how kids just say anything? And they run up, they're like, Mom, why she look like that? And they do these weird things. Kids are just like, they're untouched, right? It's the influence of society and experiences and the people around us that honestly give us things to be cautious about. And I even think back, we were reflecting last night, Danny, about all the shit we used to do in our teenage years, and I'm like, I would just never do anything like that now. It's too risky. It's that sort of like, I don't want to say wisdom at 29, but it's like that perspective, that experience, that lived experience, that understanding that makes you more cautious, makes you worry, makes you anxious, right? Because you know what could go wrong. And I feel like that's not a bad thing, right? We're not talking that that's a bad thing. It's just being aware of like, well, where does that actually come from? And then noticing how we want that to come through as well, because obviously we still want to take risks, and maybe not as many risks as 16-year-old Sherelle did, but some risks that we can still have fun and still lean into the things that we want to do. So I think past experiences, definitely primary school. I know we've spoken a lot about that in the past, definitely primary school experiences, but then also I feel like our teenage years and early 20s, man, like I changed so much during that time.
Yeah, I feel like you can use some inner dialogue to your power though, like what you mentioned, as you get older, you go through more things. So then, I don't know, you are a little bit more careful. As you said, you wouldn't take the same risks that you did when you were 16. I mean, with good reason, so I also find myself analysing things more than what I would have done. We're not as sort of carefree, happy-go-lucky, but I feel like that if we're about to do something, that negative talk, or I suppose it's different. I don't want to separate. I mean, I don't want to blur everything in one, but you do get that negative talk. Oh, maybe this will go wrong because it's happened in the past. Now, there's a difference between an educated inner dialogue, I'll just call it now, versus something that's just stopping you from living life. Two different things. But, if you make a business decision in the past that's not ideal, chances are that memory will come up again if you're faced with a similar situation. So then you can kind of use it to gauge your next decision. But then you don't want the voices to come up to then just paralyze you forever.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just thinking back, and I know we've spoken a little bit about like the neuroscience in the past, but like your chimp brain and your professor brain, like your chimp brain is there to protect you. It's cheeky, it's quick, it's funny, it's cute. And that's what is, I guess, portrays that cautious self-talk that's like, don't do that, don't try too hard, don't fail. And then our professor brain, more logical, more wise, the part of me that's not going to do the stuff that I did at 16. There's sort of two parts, and that's why it's not, self-talk's not negative, it's just something we all have, right? And it's sort of like, to what degree do we allow it to control our life? Our goal is to like encourage our professor brain to make more of the wise, methodical decisions, with our chimp brain reminding us that it's there and that we should be careful and we should be cautious and don't take too many risks and, have a plan B, etc. All of those sort of things. So I feel like self-talk as a broader topic is a lot of things, But from the lens today that I would love to move to, I think the negative self-talk is the issue that a lot of people have. It's the negative voices that come up that hold them back, that tell them not to take risks, that tell them not to introduce themselves, that tell them not to change careers, that just give them all these things. And I feel like that's something that I see so often in coaching, but then also my own friends and family. Do you know what I mean? It shows up for absolutely everyone. And sometimes you just need that mirror to go, hey, is that true? Or like, I don't know, like what evidence do you have to support that? So I feel like we're going to try and do that for you guys today.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people just get used to having that dialogue. It becomes their safety net to not take a risk because they go, oh no, it's not going to happen anyway, or they just get comfortable. So then it becomes a lot easier to be hard on yourself and to find the problems. And you also notice people sharing their problems as well with other people. I don't know, we've all been in a situation where everyone's just gossiping or you know, talking about the news or something really bad that's happened. And I get super uncomfortable in those situations because although I understand it's their way to connect, it's very negative. And I've never really been able to understand why people just love bringing up problems together, then agreeing on the problems, and then everyone just ends up more uncomfortable at the end of the conversation. And they're like, that was a great catch up, let's do it again next week. And I'm like, I'm exhausted. Have you been in situations like that? Where,
100%.
Yeah.
People do it to bond. Like people bitching and gossiping, it sort of gives someone an attachment to another person to have mutual grounds. It's what they, it's what they do. But I think when that happens to me now, right, I think, I wonder if you're doing this to me behind my back. You know, like it makes me question the loyalty of that person. So it goes, when you've got that perspective, it goes against why they actually do it. Whereas they're like, oh, they're just trying to find common grounds and they probably don't realize that they're doing it. So yeah, I mean, like, and that just feeds into it as well. And I think one of the other big things, especially with like inner dialogue stuff, is like social comparison. And that's just a reality of 2023 and like our generation and our time. I feel like we're the sweet spot, like as the younger millennials, where we no time without Wi-Fi, but then we also know what it's like now to have it, you know? And I think somewhere in the middle where we didn't have all that stuff growing up, and I am so grateful that I did not have social media as a teenager. I don't know. I remember asking my mum for Facebook. Did you ever have to ask your
I had to ask for everything because they might have wanted to make a phone call. And we had to plug it in. Remember the dial-up? So you had to ask permission literally. Oh, can I use the internet now? No, so-and-so is going to call in an hour. Oh, that dial-up tone. Yeah, we're definitely in that sweet spot. We saw the emergence of all of that, but we also did have time without being able to see what other people across the world were doing. It was just us in our backyard, you know, riding our bike, and the only people around us were like the neighbours or people at school or then family, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Something I want like everyone listening and even you, Danny, to think about is like, what is your not good enough story? You know, when it comes to dialogue, like for me, it's always been not smart enough. You know, we've all got a not pretty enough, not fit enough, not skinny enough. Like we've all got a not something enough story. And I honestly think it comes from social comparison. Like it comes from social media where we're like not smart enough in comparison to who, or it's like not successful enough in comparison to who. You know, we only have a metric by looking out rather than in when it comes to these days, because who are we going to compare ourselves to if we didn't have social media, right? And the unfortunate thing with social media, and the positive thing, does a lot of great things, but we constantly get to see what the top 1%ers in the world are doing on a daily basis. And then everyone just automatically compares their body, their business, their worth to the 1%. And it's no surprise that we all don't feel good enough. So I feel like that's important to highlight because, again, so much of it is subconscious. And if you guys want to shock, like go and see your screen time for how long you spend on Instagram or TikTok or social media. These platforms are designed just to pull us in and make us addicted, like a pokie machine, to be honest. So I feel like being able to be aware of that and auditing your screen time, but your social media time, filtering that out is super important if you're going through this process too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the pokie machines and the news feed of your social media have the same features on purpose, like scrolling. Have you noticed the slot scroll and then our news feed scroll? Because it's kind of like, what's next? I'll just hang on a little bit more because something interesting might pop up, or I might get the feature on the pokies. So it's deliberately the same technology there. But totally, and I used to be a lot worse when I was younger, which I know it kind of goes against what we were saying, but I found that because I didn't have much confidence growing up at all, because it was my little bubble. And, you know, I was young, I didn't have money, or I didn't feel like I had control of everything. I just had to wake up, go to school or go to uni. But then using social media, although there was that comparison piece to other people, but it allowed me to see the possibilities out there. So I have a weird one where it's kind of like I have positive experiences from it too, because it did allow me to see outside my bubble and look what people are doing interstate, overseas, seeing the possibilities. But then you can find yourself falling into that comparison because everyone's life did look amazing on social media. So it wasn't until I started meeting more people out there who have life experience, and you know, obviously I haven't met all my favorite celebrities and all of that, but you do meet people, and then you kind of see their social media and you go, oh, actually I feel just really sorry for you, because then as we get older our emotional awareness 100%. Increases, and you start to recognize why people do what they do and why we do what we do. And it's like, oh no, I actually don't want your life. Like, not being mean to that person, but it's like, why was I so hard on myself? Because this person's so hard on themselves, and that person's so hard on themselves. So you may as well just try and work on the relationship with you.
It's so true. I think one of the best things I ever did for my confidence was meet the people I used to compare myself to, or meet the people that inspired me, and be like, oh, like, no shade on them, but you're not what I thought. You know, like, you're not what I expected. You're actually really shy and really like withdrawn, and like I'm watching them try and get the perfect shot, you know, and it's sort of like, oh, so, you know, the way things show up, it's just not what it seems. And I think everyone needs to realize that it's not what it actually seems. Like, we all know that social media is a highlight reel, but we don't, I think we don't subconsciously know it. You know, we consciously tell ourselves that, but do we subconsciously? Does our subconscious self-talk know that it's not a highlight reel? Probably not. And I think it comes down, the responsibility is on you as well. It's like, unfollow people that make you feel insecure, even if they've done nothing wrong. Even if they've done nothing wrong, like, you can still unfollow them if they're just triggering you in the wrong way. But then also make sure that you do that U-turn, because I've definitely heard of people that go off social media and they just don't use it anymore. And I sort of think, I don't know if that's necessary.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think that's necessary. I connect with so many people. I obviously have a business now because of it. But like, I would have no idea what any of my high school friends were doing if I wasn't on Facebook. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's where everyone invites everyone to events, group chats, like all those things. So I feel like it's not like the problem, it's how you actually use it. But I just know a lot of people actually completely cull social media because they're like, nah, it's toxic, it's bad. And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like that just means you might need to do a little bit more inner work.
Absolutely, because we see everything through our lens. So obviously their lens is toxic.
Yeah.
Because as you said, we do have control to unfollow the people that so-called make us feel bad, but they might just be living their everyday life, and it's actually us that has the toxic thoughts. And when it comes to actually reframing those negative thoughts, the first piece that we put down was awareness. Realizing, hang on a minute, I'm using a negative dialogue, and it could be, a lot of people use a negative dialogue for motivation. You know, in the gym, they say such bad things.
They talk themselves down
to get that activation energy, and that's what it does. So a negative inner dialogue that is used for taking action brings on that fight part to yourself, because it's not nice. And then you say something not nice to yourself, you get that activation energy, and then maybe that does get you out of bed into the gym, and maybe that does make you push out the extra reps, and maybe it does keep you working hard. But it comes from such a toxic place. You know, we've all seen, not we've all, I got to stop saying that, but I've seen an experiment where they had two plants, and I may have brought it up on this podcast before.
Plants?
We've done that many episodes. Plants, like literally plants.
Oh.
In two pots.
Yeah.
And they labeled one like good and one evil. Same water, same temperature, same soil, same plant. They said positive things to the plant labeled good, okay? Like, I love you, and it's all tonality as well, really sweet, soft tonalities. And then in the opposite area where, you know, the plants were separated, they would say bad things to the other plant. Over time, and after a couple of months, and everyone can Google this, it sounds bizarre, but it's a real thing, the good plant grew and thrived, and the bad plant died and became, you know, discolored, wilted, and ended up dying.
Is that legit?
Legit, and it's with snowflakes as well. Plants and snowflakes. Yeah, the good snowflakes read our energy and our vibration as humans and formed beautiful shapes, symmetrical, you know, what snowflakes look like in the cartoons. And then the bad snowflake went a bit brown and then just asymmetrical. It is unbelievable. So it just shows we are water, we are energy, and things outside of us can feel the effects. So imagine the effects internally.
Yeah. Imagine like speaking to yourself, like your brain, your actual brain, and how much that's going to do, or your child. You know what I mean? Like all of those sort of things are obviously going to have a massive impact. And have you read much of the work of like Joe Dispenza and a lot of his stuff? Like our mind is so powerful, like not only for like the type of person that we become, but like the healing in our body, like how much we challenge ourselves. But that negative talk that you're speaking about to like push us, like people just go, yeah, it's discipline. And it's like, ugh. Like it gives me a little bit of like a cringe. It's like, you can't make a positive, sustainable change from a negative mindset or a negative place. Like you can't hate yourself happy. You know what I mean? You have to like, you can't do it. It's so backwards. And I know like discipline is like one of those things, especially in like the fitness and the business world. It's like, be disciplined, work harder. But it's like, actually self-compassion is probably a much more effective and better way to be able to do like a, you know, a big circle and be able to develop the mindset and the habits in order to get there. Because how much better, like even if you think about it, if I like someone, like if, you know, I like you, Danny, obviously.
Thanks.
You know,
I like
if
you
you're a good person, how much more effort do I want to put in when we're doing something together? We all remember the teachers. Let's go back to school, right?
Here we go.
Remember the substitute teachers that you did not like. How much would you play up for them? You'd be like, nah. But then you have the, like, still the teacher, like cool teacher that you're like, oh, they sort of bend for me. I'm going to bend for them. I'm going to behave for them. My God, I was such a little shit. But I just like, we're always going to outperform in environments or work harder for people that we like.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't we do that for ourselves? Like if we like ourselves, we're going to work harder, more efficient, better, and we're going to be more confident in doing so.
Absolutely. But I think like when it comes to awareness, most of us just live in autopilot.
True.
So we don't actually give ourselves the space to realize, oh shit, I'm actually using negative self-talk for motivation, or, you know, or maybe you're not even using it at all. It probably just shows up. So you need to give yourself space to let the inner dialogue become conscious, not just subconscious. So a lot of people can't sit in a room by themselves without scrolling, without, you know, calling a friend, or you see everyone on the train or, you know, waiting for a flight. Everyone's on their phone. Everyone's distracted, because it can be quite scary to just be sitting there with no distraction, because that's when the voices come up.
Yeah, awareness, right? Like you said, people just constantly distracting themselves. And even for me, like when we have new women join our community in the coaching circle, and we sort of do group coaching calls as well, there's some sort of change that happens for people when you come into a circle and like the behavior, the environment's different. Because even if you think back, maybe circles that you've been in the past where it's like, oh, I feel so fat today, and it would be like, I don't know, people just like feed off each other's like negativity, and they don't actually know that they're sort of talking themselves down in a group setting. I feel like it's very common. When you then take one of those people and put them in a group where it's uncommon to use that sort of language and speak to yourself in that way, it changes you. Like it forces you. It's like, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to be the odd one out, right? Like social influence. It's like, I'm going to tell myself that I'm doing a really good job, and I'm going to like accept compliments, and I'm going to lean into this. So I feel like being able to like put yourself in spaces where like your, I guess, behavior that you want is the behavior that's reinforced and promoted, like that's a really powerful way to start shifting things.
Totally. Tall poppy syndrome, right? They say Australians are known for it. And it's true. Like sometimes it's easier if you're in that environment just to not talk yourself up, because you don't want to look like the arrogant one or the cocky one, or why are you so happy? Like you see people and they're like, oh, why are you smiling? And it's like, should that even be a question? I can't believe that's a thing. So
why are you so happy?
Why are you so happy? It's like, oh God.
Can I not be?
Exactly. So environment. Put yourself without making yourself feel bad though, because then you don't want to actually cover up that negative dialogue that's happening because you're around everyone so happy, and then you don't want to just be that person who's genuinely upset, because then you'll feel worse. So it's a fine line. It depends on the depth of the dialogue, but if you're just saying it to try and fit in, as in if you're talking about the news because you're with a group who loves talking about all the bad things that happen on the news, that's surface level. Change environments and then talk about other things as well. So we're not trying to say that it's bad to have these feelings come up, but just how to address them, because there's no such thing as no negative dialogue. It's just about knowing how to sort of tame it.
Hey guys, if you're enjoying the episode, please share it with a friend or share it on your socials, and don't forget to tag us. Environment's so important, right? Environment is the people you follow on social media, it's your circle, it's your family, it's who you work with, like it's all of those things. And sure, sometimes we actually don't have control over a lot of those things, but if you said to me, Danny, like, oh, you know, like I feel like shit today, I look like crap, I would be like, shut up, no, you don't, look fantastic, look hot. we pep ourselves up, right? Like all the time. And I think you actually need to find people like that. You need to find people that are going to like hype you up as well, because we're all going to have like our little moments where maybe we don't feel fantastic. And then I'll take a photo and be like, Danny, this looks so good, right? You get that little bit of like kick, and it's infectious, right? Like confidence is contagious. Like if you surround yourself with people that have genuine self-confidence, not like insecurities that they're just brushing over, and they just genuinely are comfortable and confident in their skin for the majority of the time with their authentic self, it is contagious. And when you surround yourself with a big group of people like that, that's when you start modeling it. Like role modeling is so powerful. It's not something that just happens by accident. We do really heavily become influenced by the people that we surround or spend the most time with.
Absolutely. And it's just such a great feeling being with people who are genuinely confident in themselves enough to compliment someone else. Because
not get jealous or
like genuinely wanting to see you happy, because it is so unfortunately common for people to be so upset with themselves that they don't know how to pay themselves a compliment. Why would they want to see you happy? It's nuts. And that can even be
I guess
family.
That is tall poppy syndrome, isn't it? It's sort of like they knock you down so that they can feel taller. And like you said, it's so common in Australia. It's unfortunately so common in the fitness industry. I don't know if you noticed that, but I've definitely like tried to reach out to people to like ask for advice or, you know, certain things in the industry. And I just find that a lot of people aren't willing to really share that much. And I feel like it's very heavy in the industry that we're in, and not so much in a lot of other sort of industries. I might be, you know, generalizing, but like I've got friends that are in different like industries and areas, and then I'm like, oh, how'd you do that? Like, oh, blah blah blah, you know. And they just got wider networks. I don't know whether that's something that you sort of think or see.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like anything to do with health and beauty and physical and just naturally you go back to that comparison side of it. So
that's true.
I don't know, beauty, hair, makeup, it can all be a bit it's just different. But I don't have experience in every single industry, so I'm sure it can happen everywhere. But I notice the ones that have to do with physical appearance, like pretty cutthroat.
I think as well it comes from scarcity too. Like especially in maybe the online environment where everyone feels like they're competing with each other, which is just ridiculous. It's like there's enough food for everyone to eat. I feel like scarcity forces people to protect, right? And even when we're talking about self-talk, that's exactly what those voices are doing, forcing us to protect. So people that are overly confident and they have like an abundant mindset, they're like, no, like there is enough food for everyone to eat, and my success doesn't mean that you don't have to be successful. Like I can share that. I don't have to keep my cards close to my chest. And I understand, like I get it. People they want to do that. But I just feel like the most successful people in any industry are willing to help. They love mentoring. They love sharing advice. They love sharing their lessons, right? And I just see that a lot. The ones that are sort of like have that scarcity mindset, and maybe they're not doing as well as they think, and it's probably because of this, to be honest, because it's like that you give and receive in the world too. So if you give, you're going to receive. I generally believe in that, and I just notice that a lot in the industry, and I just feel like it's something to be mindful of. Like don't get hurt about it and be like, oh well, you know, I won't, like screw them and I'll adopt it, because I feel like that's what can happen. It's like, well, I'm going to do this thing and I'm not going to share my secrets or how I got there or anything like that, or give advice to other people up and coming. I just feel like that's something we need to like eradicate, but it does start from your own limiting beliefs and self-talk as well.
Absolutely. And you mentioned sometimes you have those voices come up for you. What do you do when that happens? Or what have you done to build your confidence from you being younger to now? Because obviously you don't have the problems of that scarcity mindset, and you're willing to pump everyone up, and you've built, you know, these communities where we all celebrate each other. So what kind of got you into the position that you're in right now?
God, good question. I feel as though experience was one thing, like recognizing that feeling vulnerable is not a bad thing and being okay to lean into that, and then being positively reinforced by doing it. So I had a lot of success, right? And that's from me thinking it's success too, it's my own mindset, but I had a lot of success early on from taking risks and putting myself in vulnerable situations and reaching out to people and taking a chance on myself and feeling insecure and feeling like an imposter, but doing it anyways. I had a lot of early success from doing that. So I think I was lucky that I was reinforced that, hey, like you might feel worried and you might feel nervous and you might feel really insecure, but you got to do this, you know, and it's going to pay off. I think I had that really early on. The second thing is I had an amazing support network around me. I didn't have a huge network, but like I had my partner, I had supportive parents. That was probably it. Good. To be honest, that's all you need though, right? Yeah. One person and your family to support you. Everyone else is like, they'll come along for the ride when you get there, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like I had good support around me that I could communicate with. And Luke was like my rock during that time. I'd be like, so nervous right from the start because like even with the competing thing, like I didn't tell anyone, didn't have any friends in that space, changing careers, like he was always really supportive. So I've had a lot of luck in those areas too, but I think the one piece that I would, like in hindsight, I would just say about, we all feel that regardless. Imposter syndrome is a completely normal thing to experience if you're trying something new or if you're stepping outside of your comfort zone, because that's exactly what it is. Imposter syndrome is doing something that you almost have a little bit of belief that you shouldn't be, because that's the truth. So I feel like that reinforcement early on was really good. However, I still get that now. Like I still get that now. Yesterday I was so nervous recording, right? I still get that. And it's just like you said, another level, another devil. So I feel like I've associated a positive mindset with the feeling of imposter syndrome or insecurity or whatever it is, just that little thing that makes you want to take action. I've reframed that to be something that I seek out because I now associate it with success.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. What about you?
Amazing.
Like what helped you sort of go through? Because I know you've shared like from high school that you were sort of quite reserved, and then now, you know, what's changed since then?
Yeah, thank you. And awesome share from you, just the power of supportive networks and just taking those risks as well. But yeah, I mean, the reserved nature in high school only came from being put in a box. As a kid, I was always like dancing, singing, filming myself, like with our old school cameras, you know, yep. Like maybe a K-zone camera, that little tiny one, you know. But then I realized that being put in situations, you know, school, society, really turned me into a person, or I'll take ownership. I turned into a person that I didn't enjoy. And then I just became a shell of who I was actually normally growing up. So then I'm like, stuff this sucks. Why do I have to try and fit in with everyone? Why do I need that person's approval in my class? Like, why are they allowed to call me these things when like I'm not? I'm not that person that I've been labeled, and then internally as well. So it was tiny steps. You get your confidence back by removing the people that don't serve you in your environment. And it's not always that easy. So I found that leaving school, I'm like, see you later, suckers. Like, I'm going to be me again. Yes. And then you just find people, and it can only be a handful. I mean, you said Luke and your parents, you know, there's just a couple of people, and obviously you found like-minded friends along the way. That's all you need. People that don't question what you're doing or put you down. And I recognize that no one really understood my drive and my goals because I was sort of making it up as I went. I'm like, this feels good. I'm going to go down this path. Oh, there's a wall there. I'm going to go to the side and keep going. Like, no one could have an opinion on what I was doing because they didn't understand what it was. because half the time I didn't either. I was just being gauged by feelings. And then when it came from a work sense, you know, providing services that helped people, made people feel good. And I got that reinforcement. And then I would save up money, and then I'd go travel. So then I wouldn't feel boxed in anymore. And then, you know, it is materialistic, but, you know, I changed my clothes and my hair, and I started feeling good about myself from the outside too. I learned how to put on makeup and stuff. All these little 1%ers that I feel added up to allow me just to be me, free of judgment. So there was not really one flick of the switch. It was just tiny increments of little confidence builders that I kept chasing, because then it was an effect of external and internal though. It wasn't just me going and seeking external validation. It was like, I feel good on this path, and that's bringing me the external environment at the same time. So just a blend of everything, but then also being naive and doing things that didn't, you know, allow me to overthink or didn't allow people to have an opinion. Like even for doing my first bodybuilding show, everyone knew what that was. They didn't really think I would follow through. No one was invested. My family and friends, they were kind of like, okay. And then I just went off and did it. And then we found each other, things like that. So I didn't actually give people an opportunity to question me anymore. You know, my parents didn't really understand. It took them like 8 years, so 3 years after I graduated, to even know what an osteopath was. No one knew, but they were just supporting. They're like, you're happy doing all of this. Well done. We're going to support you. We don't understand what the hell you're doing, but we're just going to support you. So a blend of everything, I feel.
Yeah, and I think we're both lucky, because I do want to acknowledge that not everyone has that as well. Like people in their corner saying, I don't care what you want to do, as long as you're happy. I know that a lot of people have pressures to sort of like excel and perform and have all of those things as well, but we don't get to pick. Do you know what I mean? It's just luck of the draw, and whether you've got that or not, you can find it. Do you know what I mean? You can sort of like, I know we don't never get to pick our family as well, and I've definitely got family that I don't talk to, but it's like you've got to be able to, you can still curate your environment. We still get choice of how much time and energy we spend with certain people. You don't have to give everything. And we also get to choose whose feedback we take on as well. Like everyone's going to give us feedback, whether you want it or not. Everyone's going to give you advice. It's their own shit, right? It's sort of like, I don't even ask for advice, but people are going to give it to you, right? And I've learned that on social media. It's like people are going to tell you their opinion whether you asked for it or not. So you've got to be so selective with whose feedback you take on. And you know, one of my favorite quotes by Brené Brown is like, if you're not in the arena getting your ass kicked, then your feedback does not matter. Because I think that's so important. If they don't understand, they don't deserve to give you, or not deserve, their feedback isn't valid. Like, because it's got no weight. They don't quite understand. But for me as well, what I was thinking about as you're saying that, fitness was one of the things that did help me build a lot of confidence and self-esteem early on, to probably let some of that self-talk, you know, sit down and be disproven, because I was like, I'm good at this. Like, my work ethic is strong in this. I am having success because I'm doing the time and consistency. And I feel like fitness has a lot of like analogies and like correlations with just life in general, because you can't buy it, you can't cheat it. You've got to do the time, you've got to be consistent. You need work ethic, you need strategy. It's like there's so many other elements to it. So I think going down that avenue initially, like, it's no surprise that a lot of people in fitness can go on to have successful businesses, because they understand time, patience, work ethic, ambition, drive, motivation. They understand that. And I just feel like finding your thing, whether it's fitness, competing, arts, music, singing, relationships, whatever it is, finding that thing that you can thrive in and be good at and build confidence and self-esteem, because you are good at it as well. Like, I'm not going to be a musician, like, you know, I'm not going to be good at it, so I'm never going to build an insane amount of confidence in that area as well. So finding that one thing and just being successful at it, I think everyone needs to have that, to really just have a good level of self-esteem and confidence in general.
Absolutely. And when we say like be successful at it, you know, apply yourself to the task. We are learning every day, but we have just found that thing that we love doing, and it changes as we grow, but it always comes back to helping other people with their health and wellness. You know, we always go back to that. And even last night we were just having a discussion, and we both said that for us to wind down rather than watching a movie. You know, we'd rather just play around on the laptop and do bits and pieces. It's our anchor. It grounds us, and we need mini anchors. Obviously, career can be a big one. You said relationships. That's like our main driver, but then we also need habits that ground us. So it's easy to get stuck in a rut. It's easy to feel like you just have no control over yourself, and then the thoughts come up. But, you know, set yourself a routine. For example, going for a morning walk or opening your journal, not looking at your phone. I know they're the traditional ones, but they're just how small that they can be to then compound. Because I know if I miss my morning walk, or if I wake up really quick and have to be out the door, I'm scattered, I'm probably more tired, more anxious, and then the thoughts come up and you don't even mean it. So find your anchors. It might be spending time reading a book, it might be playing with your pet, you know, you might go watch music. I don't know, I'm bringing up music again, like anything like that, or listen to music. We need our anchors as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Anchors are so important, but what you said there sort of triggered something for me, because I think a lot of people can do that. It's like when they're not feeling themselves, like they're sick or they're run down or they're just out of routine, the self-talk, it's like comes in, it's like, yep, told you so. It's like that reinforcing voice. The art is, though, not responding with it. You know, and I see this coaching a lot as well. But what can tend to happen is like late night messages, you know, it's like midnight, long messages about they're not feeling themselves or whatever it might be. It's like that can come up. And, you know, when I'm training even the other coaches in the women's health movement, I'm like, never respond straight away. You know what I mean? Like never respond to a message that comes through after out of hours. Just let them sit on it, give them 24 hours, let them think about it, respond, check in. Hey, just wanted to check in. How are you feeling at the moment? It's like, oh, I had a really good night's sleep. Like, feel great. All right, just ignore that. Oh, it's like that bad text you sent to your boyfriend. But we all do it. Do you know what I mean? It's just about that awareness. We need to create space between stimulus and response for ourselves, but we can also take this on board if we're working with people. It's like you need to give them space between stimulus and response. They're the stimulus, you're the response. Don't go straight away, because they're still in that part. They're still in that way of thinking. So for yourself, if something happens, right? If I'm sick and I haven't been able to go to the gym all week, I've been eating like crap, I'm traveling, I've been on a plane, like I'm not going to like do body shots and like look at myself in the mirror and be like, damn, like I probably don't feel like my best self. So don't collect that and say that it's reality though. That's not your reality. That's just where you are emotionally at the moment. Go to bed, have good sleep, like you said, routine, do the things, get some early successes in the morning, and then check in with yourself. And then that's your reality. And I just think people need to understand that our self-talk's going to shift based on how we're feeling emotionally.
Oh, yeah. And don't set yourself up for failure. Like, if you've had a night out drinking, don't go for your deadlift PB the next day just because it's on your program. Or don't weigh yourself after Christmas, because you know what the outcome's going to be. You know, we have those people that just do that. You can't set yourself up for failure, because sometimes the things are just so obvious. It's like, don't do it. Change your schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the last thing that I really wanted to touch on as well was just celebrate yourself. You know, I think especially for women, there was a fine line between arrogance and confidence and self-esteem and everything. And it's not arrogant to accept compliments. It's not arrogant to say, you know what, I did do a really good job. Like, own your successes physically, mentally, emotionally, professionally. So often we've been taught to deflect compliments as females. Like, how often would you say, you look fantastic? And you go, oh no, it's just this. Or
I just washed my hair.
I just
that's
washed
all.
my hair.
That's a common one.
Oh, isn't that a common one?
Totally.
Damn, I feel caught out. I think I do that sometimes. But it's so ingrained in us from a young age to deflect compliments. And I just challenge everyone to accept it. Like, what does it feel like to go, oh, thanks very much. I have been looking after myself, or whatever it might be, or thanks, I've worked really hard for this. You know, being able to accept that compliment, it feels a little bit like cringy, a little bit uncomfortable. But if you give a compliment, I hate it when people just like palm it off. I'm like, no, like I want you to feel good, because it makes me feel good when I give compliments as well and people accept them. Like, I like making people feel confident. So I feel like normalizing that it's okay to accept compliments, give yourself compliments, you know, give yourself affirmations, do whatever you need to do to be able to step into that confident side of yourself.
Absolutely, but small steps. You know, if you're having a bad day, don't force yourself to look in the mirror and say, I'm beautiful, I'm smart, I'm strong, blah, blah, blah. Don't force it. I love affirmations, but affirmations that you believe in. Okay, because we all have shit
Based off
happen.
evidence, right?
Based off evidence, because my biggest lessons in life are from the times that I made mistakes and then I felt like shit because I made those mistakes. And then you look in the hindsight and go, oh, thank God that happened, because that'll never happen again. I became this person. It's all learning opportunities. Now, those voices will come up forever, okay? The higher you guys climb, the more you guys challenge yourself, the voices will come up. It's survival. We've all imagined, something going wrong for a public speaking event, or if we're competing, something happening on stage. Your brain imagines all those things to try and save you from taking action. It is normal because, often your brain just does go to worst case scenario. No matter what happens, if it's a new experience, the worst case scenario pops up. That would always happen to me. So I did look into Joe Dispenza's work. I did have to research a little bit of neuroscience because I'm like, what is this? But it's just a survival mechanism. Okay, so if you have that worst case scenario pop up, you can go, oh yeah, that's just my body and my mind trying to save myself from a new experience, because new experiences take energy. Okay, they take learning, they take effort. It comes down to energy conservation. So you go, oh yeah, that's a worst case scenario. I know why that's popping up. Don't give it time. Don't give it light, and then get on with it. And get used to sitting in the nerves, okay? Even yesterday, our first episode, we were a bit jittery. Or whenever we've done a new decision, you get jittery. Doesn't mean you stop. Focus on your breath, slow down, get used to sitting in that feeling, and then you just keep getting on with it.
Yep, absolutely. Like what you said earlier, I feel like it's another devil or a higher devil. No, wait, another higher level, the bigger the devil.
Okay,
I feel
yeah.
like the higher you go up, the more people watching. And then, it's like that cringe. It's like, holy shit, I've got reputation now. I've got brand. I've got like these things. I've got a lot more people. It's easy to do something if you've got like one person watching, to some degree. For me, I would feel that, but not for everyone. But being okay with the fact that the higher you grow, like the worse it's going to get anyway. So you may as well learn to manage it now.
Totally. I mean, we could talk about this forever, but I feel like we just really want to let you know that those voices will come up. It depends on, the depth of it, obviously. If it's something you can't overcome, see a professional. That's why they're there. We're very lucky to be able to have those resources. But then for the surface level stuff, it's just your mind trying to play tricks on you as well and all of that. So for us, it still comes up. You just learn to sit in it and change your environment. If you're around people that make you feel bad, see you later. Yep. Have a conversation first, obviously, but then if it's not worth the time, change your environment.
Yep. Feel it and do it anyways.
Yep.
That's my motto.
Done.
Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the episode. As we mentioned at the start, we just wanted to be able to discuss a little bit about self-talk and give our lens on it, and hopefully give you some strategies and just some ways of thinking to help you guys navigate through it, because it pops up for everyone.
Thanks, guys. If you're enjoying the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and hit follow so you can stay up to date with our weekly podcast.